Arjun, what does this mean to you? This means so much to so many people. Cinema Marte Dum Tak.
जीना यहाँ मरना यहाँ इसके सिवा जाना का.
Absolutely.
So if you put both those terms together, they mean the same. And I take tremendous pride in it because मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है यार. I really enjoy every aspect of filmmaking. तो मेरे लिए तो सिनेमा मरते दम तक मेरे सिस्टम में रहेगा.
When were you introduced to horror films like these that you've shown here?
Kantisha became the poster boy, but then around that there was another industry that was there.
Right.
And even now, if you go to forums, they are passionately discussed.
Right.
And people know a lot about these pulpy films that were there.
मैंने पिछले एपिसोड में कहा था, it's a guest appearance or it's a cameo or a special appearance, but I wanted to add value by not bringing Arjun Kapoor's baggage.
Okay.
By being able to provide them a platform where they can talk freely.
Right.
Because the job was already done, they had already made their films. I was literally the culmination of the story.
You're saying Amar and all will make. What about you? Will you make this?
Of course, yeah. This is one genre that completely tests everything that you have.
Yeah.
Because
so it's craft driven.
The problem with horror is horror has to land.
True. एक का dash
काट दूंगी.
Yeah, this is what?
Yeah.
Jallat number
1.
ही होगा hopefully डेविड अंकल ने
right.
वरुण की अगली फिल्म जल्लाद नंबर 1.
Vasan Arjun, welcome to Bollywood Hungama.
Thank you.
First thing is, Cinema Marte Dum Tak. What does this title actually mean to you in real life?
I mean, I always loved the title Marte Dum Tak. I wanted this title for a film once.
Okay.
But that wasn't falling in place. So when this came along, I thought, what better title?
Right. Arjun, what does this mean to you? This means so much to so many people. Cinema Marte Dum Tak.
Yeah, this is what I am. This is what my upbringing is, what my culture is. I don't know anything else. I mean, we can talk about everything else, but it all boils down to this.
Right.
आप नसें काट के देखोगे तो आपको सिनेमा ही मिलेगा. और दूसरी एक कहावत है जो मुझे हमेशा अच्छी लगती है, जो जीना यहाँ मरना यहाँ इसके सिवा जाना का.
Absolutely.
So if you put both those terms together, they mean the same.
Mean the same.
I don't think people like Vasan and me know anything else. Like we can talk about, suddenly we can pick up conversations about trivia, about films. So I think the passion of making it is one thing, the passion of consuming also. तो सिनेमा मरते दम तक for me is मैं मरते दम तक हर रात को एक पिक्चर देख के सोऊंगा, कुछ भी हो जाए. मैं सुबह जागूंगा तो मैं IMDb चेक करूंगा कि मुझे अगर कुछ पता करना है कि कौन सी पिक्चर आ रही है. मुझे ट्रेलर्स देखना पसंद है. ये क्या बना रहा है, वो क्या कर रहा है. तो I think our gossip also revolves around cinema.
Right.
In that sense, our friendly chatter or banter also comes from cinema. तो वो cinema हमेशा रहेगा.
That's why you are the film information guy. Everybody says कि Arjun से पूछो, box office, everything.
मैं वो and I take tremendous pride in it because मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है यार. I really enjoy every aspect of filmmaking. तो मेरे लिए तो सिनेमा मरते दम तक मेरे सिस्टम में रहेगा.
Right. When were you introduced to horror films like these that you've shown here?
So I think I started from the VHS days.
Right.
We used to regularly go. In fact, Peter Jackson's first film, Bad Taste, had seen it on VHS. So, and in that film, there is, a guy who breaks his head and another guy eats his brain from a spoon. So, Peter Jackson, the guy who made Lord of the Rings, started from that absolute pulpy cinema.
Did we want to do Frighteners also as a payoff to that world? Michael J. Fox
But he started with Bad Taste.
Right.
Which was like super gory.
But he had good taste.
And here which one? Here
I think I started with Harinam Singh, Khuni Dracula only. But before that it was the Ramses, Virana, Purana Mandir, and those films.
Right.
And when those wouldn't be in circulation, they would push in the other kind of they'd be like, "Isme bhi Dracula." So that's how we kind of got introduced to this.
Right.
And then obviously when you grew up, and I think during Orkut is when in 2006, 2007 Gunda blew up.
Yeah.
Because the IITs, the students, they discovered Gunda and they started talking about Gunda in a big way. And post that, I think there was a lot of discovery around. So Kantisha became the poster boy. But then around that, there was another industry that was there.
Right.
And even now, if you go to forums, they are passionately discussed.
Right.
And people know a lot about these pulpy films that were there. Like people like Asim, who collect all VCDs, DVDs, hunt for them.
Right.
Of Mohan Bakri to Harinam Singh.
Right.
to everyone. Like
Super.
they watch all their films.
And what's amazing is Ibu Hatela made it to a Marvel film.
Correct. From
Right.
Gunda to Eternals.
From- right.
That is incredible.
You come from a film family.
Yeah.
But very different kind of cinema, of course. Did you all watch this as? What is your memory of watching these? Did you all?
Honestly यार ऐसा नहीं था कि घर पे ये बात होती थी कि वो देखो या ये देखो. It was about, I think for me it started by, I came to know that this cinemas come into lure from Z horror show starting out and Ahat starting out. So
Right.
there was always, as kids, that used to be our one touch point of horror.
Okay.
And then you kind of start talking about it and hearing, and then I discuss. So मेरे लिए उल्टा था.
Right.
It was almost like watching television and discovering, oh, this has stemmed from a space that was created maybe 10 years before that.
Right.
So I started watching it as it was almost like a connoisseur of Z horror show and Ahat to go into time and say,
Right.
oh, the origins of it this is the cool interpretation of it, but it started from somewhere from there.
Right.
So I think for me, मेरी शुरुआत ऐसे नहीं होता कि फिल्म फैमिली में थे तो बातचीत होती थी. It became more like I was a fan of watching
Viewer.
those shows.
Right.
Therefore I started watching, and it was not, उस टाइम पे इंटरनेट तो था नहीं कि आप बस
Right.
एक्सेस ढूंढ सकते थे.
Right.
तो फिर लाइब्रेरी में जाते थे तो आप देखते थे तो आपको एक विजुअल दिखता था जो सिमिलर था.
हाँ.
And that's how you start. So sometimes you don't even know the title of the film.
Right. Right.
I think I've seen so many films where I today might not be able to tell you, but if he shows me a clip, I'll say, अरे हाँ ये वाली थी.
Okay.
वो क्या रेंट पे उठा के ले आते थे, जो देखने का मन था दोस्तों के साथ देख लेते थे.
Right.
But it sort of stemmed from, for me, it stemmed the opposite. It was almost like going back in time from watching Z horror show now.
Right. Any of you, two of you, were scared of horror, watching horror? Like the idea is to get scared, right? Or not ever.
Yeah, I mean, it would be scary in the sense after a while that very night you'd be a little afraid to go to the washroom. Like those things would happen. But otherwise, the thrill was getting scared.
Getting scared, right.
The skill was really coming and discussing later in the morning ki yaar meri to pad gayi thi. You know, that obviously was the intention also.
Right.
Yeah.
Arjun,
I think after a point you stop getting scared.
but
Because
till
till a
some
point,
age,
yeah, till you realize, till you don't know, there's a mystery and fear,
Correct.
and then slowly you grow up. At some point, you start also laughing at it.
Yeah.
But that's the whole fun of it.
That's the whole fun of it.
I think for anybody who likes horror, you like to get scared and then laugh at it any which way.
Right.
That they actually managed to
That
scare you.
nervous chuckle always there. Yeah.
And when you see films in theaters, invariably हिंदुस्तान में होता ही है कि अगर वो डरे ना तो उसके बाद हंसी छूटती है.
Right.
And there would be some heckler.
जैसे
Yeah,
मैंने
in the
भूत
theatre.
अकेले देखी थी थिएटर
Oh
में.
God, you did?
I went and saw Bhoot alone in Fame Ad Labs at that
And there were
time.
many people in
And
the
there were many people, मतलब enough people for it to be that you could feel like it's community viewing.
हाँ.
और मैं झटका खाता था, but बाजू से हंसी आती थी.
People would then laugh.
I used to be like, ये हंस क्यों रहते हैं ना? I realized it's a
Because
self-defense
it was-
mechanism.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like people get scared. कि डरा दिया. It's like so there was an inbuilt mechanism of not wanting to get scared. So you're so wound up that people end up chuckling in theaters.
Right. Right.
So they start heckling, I would say.
Yeah,
rather.
that also. Yeah.
To kind of counter their own fears, they start making remarks already. So
Right.
I guess I stopped getting scared, but watching films in theaters, I still get scared.
Yeah.
But I enjoy that.
That's the idea of it, right? You know, now this is out on Prime Video. Everybody can watch it. Who initially was the person you went to and you know convinced them, and they got convinced that this should be made. This will be cool,
So yeah, so this was opposite because Sameera Kanwar from Vice, she had the germ.
right?
Then she got in touch and then we got discussing as to how this can be a show.
Okay.
And Aparna was immediately on it. She already had an inkling because Sameera had already told
Okay.
her. So this was the least difficult show to at least start.
Okay.
It was really difficult to get it made, but we didn't have to really convince. Everyone was on the same plane right from the beginning.
Right, right. Arjun, you know, you watched it. Did you watch it? And also, what was important also to give them the respect. You know, these are people who've done incredible work
Yes.
at one point in time, and not make a joke out of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
हाँ वो आइडिया यार देखो मैं बस छोटा हिस्सा हूँ शो का.
जी जी.
I come in, मैंने पिछले एपिसोड में कहा था, it's a guest appearance or it's
Right.
a cameo or a special appearance, but I wanted to add value by not bringing Arjun Kapoor's baggage,
Okay.
by being able to provide them a platform where they can talk freely.
Right.
Because the job was already done, they had already made their films. I was literally the culmination of the story. I came in at the premiere, and I think just to see faces, यार premiere बहुत बड़ी चीज होती है.
Yeah.
हम लोग मैं आज भी मैं मिस करता हूँ प्रीमियर होना. मतलब आज ट्रायल्स होते हैं, स्क्रीनिंग्स होती है, पर वो प्रीमियर के लिए तैयार होना, आपने जिस चीज के लिए काम किया, आपकी सारी क्रू आएगी, उसके बाद यू नो यू विल चैट अबाउट इट, एंड it's a different feeling. It's like graduation.
Yeah.
It's a memory. आप ट्रायल्स भूल सकते हो, स्क्रीनिंग्स भूल सकते हो, आप थिएटर में जाके पिक्चर देखना, पर एक प्रीमियर में ना एक जादू, एक वो समय थम जाने की वैल्यू होती है. So perhaps they didn't get that. I was just happy that I was part of that moment because I miss it in my life. I've not had too many premieres. So the fact that they got it, they could be celebrated, walk the red carpet with their families. I was just happy to blend in that environment and see people getting their due.
Right.
And the fact that Prime Video was giving them this platform that it would not be made fun of.
Right.
They're not just trying to make it tacky or trying to speak कि यार ये देखो ऐसा भी हुआ करता था. There is about ऐसे भी लोग हैं और उन्होंने ऐसी जर्नी ली है ताकि वो यहाँ तक पहुँच सके.
Right.
So for me, I just was very very happy to provide a platform for them to come and talk, hang out. And tell their side of the story, and me to be able to give them a, like how today you're talking to me and giving me a position where I can talk. It's nice to listen.
Yeah, totally agree. We love attending, and we were there at your premiere, and what a proud moment it was for you and the entire team. Taking you back again to this, what was on your mind that how to handle this, that it should not make fun of anyone?
So I think first when we assembled the team, I mean all the directors, Disha, Zulfi, Kulish, all the producers, Harshita, Pritika, Vatsala, Riya, Bhuvna, all of them, when they came in, all of them were on the same page.
Okay.
And actually these are the people who relentlessly kept talking to them and convincing them to be a part of the show.
Okay.
Because initially there was a lot of reluctance, but all the directors and the producers, they kept talking to them, kept meeting them, and then COVID happened, the first wave, the second wave, then we didn't know how things are, because documentaries need a certain flow, right? But here you had to test people before coming on set. The protocols had changed,
right?
And it was a difficult process for them. Like they made films by paying cash, and on a handshake they would make a film. But here, obviously, you're bound through legal contract, and there is vetting, and there are so many things. So that culture they weren't used to. They weren't really sure as to why are we interested in them. So actually, all credit to the team, the directors and the producers who relentlessly kept talking to them through. And
what was the reluctance?
So the reluctance was like, why are they even interested in us? And obviously, why should they trust us? Because we've always, the mainstream has always looked down upon this kind of cinema, mocked it, spoofed it. So obviously they had all the reasons to not trust us. But then the team kept at it. I think that was the difference. And once you kept talking, then they could also see the genuinity in it. And that's how those bridges were built.
Right.
And that's how then, the word spread within the industry. So then one thing led to the other. So then we could get the distributors, we could talk to the other actors. So they kind of were like, our voices are going to be heard.
Right.
So I think they all came in that trust then.
Right. You understand, Arjun, the reluctance why one would have, like, because what he's saying is that mainstream looked down upon, this.
Yeah, of course. यार आप कई इतिहास के पन्ने में खो गए हो, और जब भी आपको याद किया गया है तो it's been a joke. It's been looked at from अरे वो देखो, it's become a meme.
Right.
Correct.
So I mean, like, and I'm saying this, Mukesh Rishi, he's a very good actor.
Yeah.
But he's known more for one dialogue that he said in Gunda. So he's a very good actor. He's played a villain in films. He's in
Sarfarosh.
He's in Sarfarosh. He was so good. He was in Judwa, the original one.
And Gardish.
In Run, my father's film, he played a positive role. So he's worked all his life, but today that man, perhaps unfortunately, is celebrated on pop culture for one line, which is not. He's an actor. He did his job. So even the people that were making it, they didn't know that after 20 years, people are going to pick up out of context and not understand कि उस time पे ये चीजें चलती थी और लोगों को पसंद आती थी, तो हम बोलते थे और करवाते थे. I can understand the reluctance, or I can understand why they would feel disappointed.
True.
And you cannot change how culture changes and people look at certain things. Absolutely. It happens in every generation. Right. But the reluctance comes from यार अब और तमाशा नहीं करना.
Exactly.
That's so important. Correct. Who out of them, when you show this so naturally, you went to their homes, they're sitting, eating, cooking, and all kinds of things. How were they comfortable with the camera in their house?
So all credit to the directors. They made, so Disha was following Jay Neelam and Vinod Talwar, and Zulfi was following Kishan Shah and Dilip Gulati, and Kulish was doing all the other actors and everyone. So they made them really comfortable. So they were going to their homes, they built a relationship, and even if you needed extra times from them, so the directors kind of really got in and made this process happen.
Yeah, so, I think by the time I sat with them, they were very gung-ho and bullish to talk. So they'd opened up.
All credit to the team. I mean, they were at it I mean, they must have gotten so many abusive calls because of the delays,
So sad,
the
yeah.
uncertainties.
Yeah.
But the producers and the directors, they went through all that patiently.
And eventually, when they saw it, what was their reaction?
So I think the reaction has been really positive. I
Right.
think they kind of understand that what we had promised in a sense, we haven't deviated from there. And when they see, and when especially the peers call them, they feel really proud
Right.
that they have been represented right. The right
Right.
words have been said, and it's not really manipulated or edited in a way to convey anything else.
Right.
It's what they've said is what's there.
Right. Arjun, at some point horror changed, for with quality and everything. Like you mentioned, Booth was one of the first films that was a very different quality of cinema. Do you think that now we get to see a much more, if that's the correct word, polished version
I
of
mean,
horror?
I think it's difficult to compare Pulp of that era that we are referring
Fair
to
enough,
a regular horror film in that sense. Perhaps today we get to see films like Twilight being made from the
Also,
same thought that Pulp cinema
But if you
started.
go back in time, Mahal,
that
Madhumati,
time.
all
Correct.
like Spirit, Bhoot, ये सब तो दो गज yeah.
But like what I would love to see is, and I say this with the hope and excitement that people like him are able to do it, is to be able to take the pulp nature of these characters that they had, these stories that they have, and actually make an authentic film that scares the living daylights out of you, and you
that'll be
like those
amazing,
characters.
Yeah, I think Hollywood kind of found that nice middle ground with Conjuring,
Right.
Yeah,
Babadook,
yeah.
and
Yes.
those series and all.
Yes.
I think Amar probably looks like the guy who will do it.
Right.
I love Bedia.
Like
Yeah.
Stree, I think, comes from
Exactly.
a very strange derivative of this cinema.
Correct.
That three guys roaming around not believing in it, and then what happens, and then the
Right.
reaction.
Correct.
And there is an item song to also make you realize that the ghost is a female, and
Correct.
so there is a lot of. देखो शुरुआत वहां से हुई इवॉल्व होके you also find a way of telling stories without being stuck and bound by specific audience. You try and open it up for more audience.
Right.
Correct.
But I feel if there's one thing lacking in our horror is the fact that we aren't brave enough to tell stories like, say, A Quiet Place, for example.
That yeah.
We rely a lot on visual craft. We rely a lot on making it entertaining.
Jump scares.
Yeah,
I think
we rely a
once
lot on
we-
jhatke do.
Jhatke do,
We
correct.
don't rely on atmosphere.
Why would we not make A Quiet Place according
No,
to
we
your
should,
assessment?
and we
yeah,
will.
why should you? Why do we not?
We will, but now, I mean, now because horror comedies are working, so probably that
business.
No, and not just here. Even in the South, horror comedies were a huge thing.
Right.
And horror as a genre, you didn't need a star.
Yeah.
You could just take anyone and then build a world around them.
Right.
So which is why horror
Which is
comedy,
why-
horror worked.
If you notice, Raz had music.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the horror element was not the scary horror, it was the
Correct.
emotional
The
horror.
story. Correct.
Then we've reached the horror comedy stage, which I mean, even I've done a Bhoot Police and Bhool Bhulaiya. But see, Bhool Bhulaiya's horror is a genuine emotional horror. Even the first one and the second one.
Right.
Manjulika is a character that does scare you because of what Vidya had done with the transformation and then what Prabhu has done this time. So I think I think as a genre, it is evolving, but what I mean by quiet places, यार एक point पे ना तामझाम कम करके सिर्फ human story पे जाएंगे ना.
Beautiful. Yeah.
तो अगर वहां तक पहुंच जाएंगे, then I think the culmination of starting from being pulp, using characters, but still having I think atmospherically we still don't use sound. We still don't use cinematography to our advantage. I think that sometimes because we are also always concerned about keeping people entertained and engrossed.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think mood creation is something
but
that we struggle with.
In a way, Rahi's Tumbad was a
exactly.
huge step into
Very atmospheric.
the atmospheric and what great crafted display.
Right. You're saying Amar and all will make. What about you? Will you make this?
Of course, yeah. I mean, this is this is one genre that completely tests everything that you have.
Yeah.
Because
So it's a craft driven.
the problem with horror is horror has to land.
True.
There is
It has
no
to
decent
in between. Right.
There's no in between.
Right.
So
So we'll keep this fun because you've made such a fun series. So we'll keep this fun. I'm not playing dumb charades. What I'm doing is I'm going to name half the title and leave one word.
He'll be better.
Yeah,
at
he
these
will be
I
things.
hope
amazing.
so, yeah. I
at it,
just embarrassed
but
myself
I'm sure you'll,
in front
Arjun,
of
you will know
Rohini.
some of these.
मतलब ऐसा full.
Yeah. You and also I'm sure you know all
I
these.
hope so, yeah. मतलब
Sure. Let's go.
पोपट ही हो गया था.
Okay. एक का dash dash.
काट दूंगी.
Yeah. This is what.
Yeah.
Jallad number.
One.
One ही होगा hopefully David uncle ने इसे
Right.
वरुण की अगली फिल्म जल्लाद नंबर 1
प्यासी dash.
चुड़ैल.
डायन चुड़ैल
चुड़ैल.
निगाहें.
प्यासी निगाहें.
Okay.
Nice. हाँ.
खून की प्यासी dash.
डायन
Yeah, very good. Okay.
कहीं ना कहीं तो लैंड होगा डायन.
Diane Chudel. Diane
ये
Chudel.
यही
Yeah.
बोलते रहो. Right. राजा को चाहिए डैश. राजा राजा रानी को चाहिए डैश.
Raja Rani को चाहिए dash. I'll just cross the line and say Moj.
पसीना.
पसीना. राजा रानी को चाहिए
प्यार
पसीना.
की डैश.
प्यार की
कहानी.
It-
प्यार का.
प्यार की
हवस.
दास्तां, हवस.
चीख.
Oh.
वेरी क्लोज. चलो.
पुकार. प्यार की पुकार.
वो
प्यार का.
भयानक डैश.
रात.
Yeah, चलो, that was easy.
Which was also a film that my father made called Raat.
Right.
Which was actually Bhoot is Raat.
Correct.
Yeah.
वही है. Revati and
Same.
Yeah.
जंगल के डैश.
जंगल के.
हाँ.
जंगल में.
जंगल के.
जंगल के राजा. जंगल के.
जंगल के शोले.
शोले.
ओह.
डैश की जान
रामगढ़ के शोले.
हाँ, that was also, yeah.
That was with all the dupes.
और जो वो जो फर्जी वाली फिल्म थी वो क्या जंगल में ओए ओए.
जंगल में हुए.
नहीं, तो रामगढ़ के शोले भी
रामगढ़
वैसे
के
ही
शोले भी
थे. हाँ,
also
same.
है. Yeah.
Right. डैश की जान खतरे में.
मुर्दे की
चुड़ैल
जान
की
खतरे
जान,
में. मुर्दे की जान खतरे में.
मैं हर चीज में चुड़ैल और डायन ही बोलना चाहता हूँ. कहीं ना कहीं तो करेक्ट हो जाए.
ओके. डैश में मंगल.
जंगल में.
Okay,
ये तो
this is
सब
easy
आज भी
one.
बोलते
Right.
हैं.
राइट. सस्ती दुल्हन.
महंगा दूल्हा. ये अभी इन्होंने
ओ ये वाला.
Thanks.
इन्होंने हैवी ड्यूटी एक फॉक्स पार्क्स किया है उसके साथ.
राइट. डैश से मेरा क्या होगा.
एक से.
एक से मेरा क्या होगा.
एंड दिस इज अ फेमस वन. डैश रात
वासन
में.
भी वही कहता जब कास्टिंग करते हैं कि
अंधेरी
एक
रात में
एक्टर से
दिया
मेरा
तेरा.
क्या होगा. मैं ऑन सॉन्ग के साथ बनाऊंगा पिक्चर. एक से मेरा क्या
एक से
होगा.
मेरा क्या होगा.
अंधेरी रात में दिया तेरे हाथ.
हाँ वो ये
तो
तो
मैंने
डम
कुछ
शरीफ की
बोला ही
फेवरेट
नहीं.
है.
मैंने कुछ बोला ही
ये तो
नहीं.
डम शरीफ के
फेवरेट.
फेवरेट.
ओके. भेड़ियों का डैश.
वीडियो
टोला
का
टोली.
नाच.
वीडियो की
ऑन दैट
टोली.
वर्ड. या.
वीडियो का.
समूह. झुंड.
समूह. ओके.
I
एंड
don't know the
लास्टली.
specifics for.
राइट. लास्टली डैश में बम्बू.
अब वो बोल सकते हैं बॉलीवुड हंगामा में ये वर्ड.
तंबू.
तंबू.
ओ हाँ तंबू. ओके मुझे लगा.
वैसे तो मर्द में गाना भी था.
Right.
तंबू में बम्बू.
राइट.
I was going to
But
say
I-
dash
you-
with tambu. I only thought of one thing.
Lastly, you have to give it to them to come up with these titles, guys.
No,
This
these
is
because they were the
huge
distributors.
department.
No,
This is.
they were the distributors' demand. You had to put a
Catchy.
as Kishan Shah says Kenchi.
Kenchi.
Kenchi,
It was a
Kenchi title.
Kenchi title.
And poster. So
Kenchi
they
title.
sold territories over this.
Right.
But if you notice today, like I remember, I think a lot of Shriram's posters are inspired by a lot of Pulp.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
You know that
Yeah,
his
yeah,
colors and all.
yeah, yeah.
Andhadhun was maybe the least, but his Johnny Gaddar
Johnny
had a
Gaddar
lot
was
of those.
beauty. Beauty. Yeah. Beautiful.
So their visual palette actually, in a strange way, defined pop culture.
Yeah. He's the bap.
He's the bap. He's the absolute.
Like Ishaq
big fan.
Zade's trailer has this finish, you know, that old poster painting
old
wala
poster
finish.
painting,
So
correct.
कहीं ना कहीं वो जो
Even as late as recent
Rowdy
as
Rathod.
even Gangubai.
Rowdy
Gangubai,
Rathod.
the first one was a painted.
Yeah.
like Rowdy
Rowdy
Rathod also
Rathod
had that.
had
और उसमें dialogue था आज है होली भीगेगी चोली, you know, इलाका तेरा धमाका मेरा. So how do you know it's going to connect? Because people say हाँ ये वो front footed वाली entertaining colorful picture है. It's so they've created an audience switch on.
They just
Their
know.
visual palette somehow gets you into अच्छा ये उस तो दुनिया में जाके it might not necessarily be a pulp film,
Right.
but it gives you a suggestion of that color.
Correct.
What to expect? Well done with this, and Arjun, always fun to chat with you about cinema and movies.
Thank you.
So we'll keep doing that on and off. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.